really think the biggest one is thinking that people are watching you. And it's like, to a degree they are. I mean, especially this plays into if you don't know what you're doing, maybe you're like off on the turf or something like that, and somebody's looking at like, what is that person doing over there? Like, are they throwing the weight over there? There's people around, there's just this intimidating factor.
Right. All right, friends, here we are for this week's culture segment. What better topic as we are heading into full-on summer to talk about than something fitness related? And so who better to talk about this than our friend Jeff Wilson, who not only is someone who has studied, has a degree, in fact, I think has a master's in kinesiology and sports medicine, those areas, but also is a fitness coach. He's a personal trainer. Big job. He was my personal trainer for all of last year. So I feel I need to mention that. If all of a sudden you're just going to tune out for that reason alone, please don't, because he has legitimate clients as well. But anyway, Jeff, welcome to the Boundless Show.
Thank you, Lisa. Pleasure to be back.
Well, you have actually been on the show a number of times, and we were joking with you beforehand of like, hey, Jeff, why don't we actually talk to you about something that you love to talk about, that is easy for you to talk about, and that's actually fun for you to talk about. And so this is going to be great. We're going to talk about people who have general gym fears, and I'm going to tack on to that just working out fears too.
Yeah.
So this idea of everyone wishes, we all assume, and this is probably because when we were 10 years old, we assume that we can just put on a pair of, running shoes and sign up for a marathon and basically do it. And then we realize when we try that, I'm no longer 10 years old. I'm now in my 20s, 30s, whatever. I'm out of shape. I just went through winter, whatever. And people will, in droves, especially around the first part of the year, sign up at gyms. They say, I'm going to do this. They get all excited. Maybe they get a friend to sign up with them. And then all of a sudden, it's like they are getting debited $40, $50, $75, $100 or more dollars a month, and they're not showing up anywhere.
Yes.
And it reminds me of that cat in the car meme that it said, like, I got this gym membership and it doesn't seem to be working, so I'm gonna finally go to the gym and find out what the problem is.
Yeah, that's a good one.
They're gonna go ask, figure out what's up. So we got to help debunk some of this stuff. And I know, I will share from my own experience, y'all, because I went to, it was December, not this past year, but the year prior, that I signed up with Jeff and went for my first sesh. And I was giving him a hard time because my first one, he has me doing something and he pulls out like his phone to video me. And I'm like, this is already taking a dark turn. And he claims that it was for comparison of like, as I make strides aspirationally, this was going to happen. And so I think, I'm just going to throw that out as that is legitimately one of the biggest fears people have is like, people are watching me, people are charting, like, which is so hilarious because I think you would agree, Jeff, that like, it's kind of that adage of like, no, the thing is people aren't thinking anything of you. They're concerned about themselves. They're watching themselves. So really that's something that, we shouldn't have to worry about. But before we get into that, I want to back it up and have you give just a quick overview of your background in the world of fitness, personal training, how you yourself got interested in fitness, and then how you made it a career.
Yeah, thanks. So I graduated from undergrad in 2011 at Saginaw Valley State. I grew up in Michigan, and I grew up playing sports, running, hockey was a big one when I was young, soccer, of course. I thought I would honestly just go into sports coaching, which I do still part-time coach at UCCS with the men's cross country team, primarily as their strength coach and nutrition coach, but it's and that's been a blessing. I like working with college age athletes, but I honestly, truthfully thought I would just stay in the sports performance realm. Mm-hmm. Even when I was in college, I remember joking about personal training with friends and stuff because we were all kind of in the same boat for the most part. A lot of track team members and teammates, some classmates that I, of course, got to know over my degree that kind of were thinking the same thing. There was only a few people that were like, oh, I want to be a personal trainer. Because at the time, it was like 08, 09. it's just a lot of stigmas were around it. And so it just seemed like very like 24-hour fitnessy and like you're just basically watching somebody do a chest press on a machine or something. And it just got a bad rap. And so I even looked at it that way. But then my thyroid journey is what kind of completely changed my view on just generally food, how I went about my athletic / health life and and just kind of like all the struggles I went through there and all the hurdles I had to jump or mountains. And that led me to looking at and having more empathy for like just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And kind of go, okay, well, my sister has autoimmune diseases like I do. And I had always, it was simple for me to just go out and run and do my thing. Because one, there was performance. And then two, I'd been doing it since I was like 3. So, but not everybody feels that way. Yeah. And so it took me a while to get to that point. But that was ironically I was able to bridge the gap from coach to personal trainer, or whatever you want to label that as, and be able to meet people where they're at more.
So that's really interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned your own health journey and struggle with some chronic health issues, because I think a lot of people make the assumption of, oh yeah, people who are, the standard athletes or people who are gym rats or whatever, they are just naturally healthy. They're naturally strong. This is easy for them. And you're saying it really became a holistic approach. I mean, you even mentioned nutrition in this. I think that's so helpful to mention in this. I think too, and I'm speaking as someone who, shockingly, all of you, like when you see me, when you meet me, you think that I am that athlete for sure. But
That's why I was videoing you.
Yeah, exactly. But here we go. Yeah, this is going to show up somewhere on the dark web. This is very unfortunate. So we're going to have to cut some deals after this. Right. But anyway, my assumption, because I have belonged to gyms in the past or I hear friends talk about their experiences, and it is legitimately like throwing tires, throwing barbells that look like they weigh about 200 pounds. I mean, even people that shared the gym that we worked out at, I was like, what are these people doing? Like, is this a legitimate thing? Like very intense, like interval kind of stuff, very just wild stuff. And so I think for me, that was immediately intimidating of just saying like, is this what I'm supposed to like get to? Like, what does this look like? And so let's kind of take it really from a very basic level of, if you were to say from your experience, what you feel some of the biggest reasons people fear going to the gym or won't even have this conversation or give it a try. What are some of them?
The easiest one is, well, you've kind of touched on it, but the fear of judgment. Yeah. Just generally speaking, especially you go to a big gym. There's now, I think, 3 Vassas here. Those are a perfect example. Okay. It's very busy. Yeah. Lifetime Fitness being another example. And obviously they're large rooms with just stuff everywhere. Yeah. And so if you haven't ever done any type of exercise in a big gym environment or any gym really, if you didn't grow up playing sports and were taught how to do certain movements, the fear of doing it wrong, getting hurt comes into play. But I really think the biggest one is thinking that people are watching you. And it's like, to a degree they are. I mean, especially if you kind of do something, well, again, this plays into, if you don't know what you're doing, maybe you're like off on the turf or something like that, and somebody's looking at like, what is that? What is that person doing over there? Are they throwing the weight over there? There's people around, But also because of the many different types of gyms and facilities, Orange Theory, CrossFit, that's a whole world in and of itself, and it's like there's a lot of community positives, and like when you actually go into a CrossFit gym, which is where I work out of, so you saw that environment, especially at the time you came. You could, the classes, there's a bunch of people over there, and there's very like family-oriented energy and stuff, but you may not get that. You go to a big gym, and you're just on your own, and everybody's got their headphones in. Right. There's just this intimidating factor, right? Almost inevitably. Even sometimes I have to check myself. Yeah. Like I just joined Vasa just recently to change up my environment a little bit, because I basically just work out on my own about 95% of the time. Oh, wow. Okay. So, and that's another thing I'll probably mention later, is not doing it with somebody. Yeah. Getting help from somebody, whatever it may be, going to a group fitness class can be a great way to, I guess, kind of squander the fear a little bit. Okay. But it depends on the person. I think like ultimately you got to know who you are. Yeah. And be willing to go into it with an open hand, knowing that there are going to be days where you're a little bit insecure about something or this, that, and the other. But the more you face it and continue pushing into it and stuff, the more you just realize they're actually probably intimidated by you at some point. Some people may laugh and then go, "Oh, but I feel like maybe you're overweight. Maybe there's something that you're very insecure about." I get it, but you may, as you get better at working out and you're kind of just doing your own thing, you really start to get to a point where you're comfortable in the environment. And as simple as that sounds, it's just that few months to maybe even a couple years process that you have to take to get there.
Sure. And that actually, I mean, it makes me think of another thing that is very intimidating or would keep people away from the gym. And that's just straight up not knowing how to use stuff.
Yeah.
That could be actual big machines, or it could just be no one wants to be the person who tries to pick up dumbbells and they can't even lift them. And then people are like, clearly you cannot do the 50s, so back it off. Something like that, or just being clueless. I mean, most of us remember from high school PE or something like, okay, I know what a leg press is. I can just sit on this bench and do a little doot, a few of those. But when it really comes to doing something that's any kind of circuit, I think people are like, I don't know where to put this pin. I don't know what extension this should be. I don't know what. And I think that could be super intimidating because it seems like a big time waste to figure all of that out. And then one of the other ones I think that goes in tandem with that is the idea of feeling like you are encroaching on other people's space. Like if you go for these dumbbells, but this dude was already doing a set with them, did you just take his stuff? Did you just, or what's going on over here with the mats? I don't know. Is someone using this? And so I think that whole just awkwardness, I don't know, can play into that as well.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, especially if you're in the very beginning of not knowing, I'll speak to guys for a second. Like even if you choose the right weight, you might be intimidating because you're choosing the right weight, which might be really light. And then you're around maybe a bunch of other guys and it's like, well, this guy clearly works out. This person's clearly stronger than I am or bigger than I am. And, not that women don't have the same thing, but it's that's definitely something that I wanted to avoid at times, even in my career. Because it's like, I'm okay with who I am as a distance runner and somebody who has a generally skinny body type, but that can still play a role, even though it's like, I know what weight I'm going to choose. I'm good with it. But then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's curling like 50s. Like, okay. So just for everybody, like I have the problems sometimes in my head too, but
Yeah, no, that's good. Address a little bit kind of what I said about the, am I taking this guy's stuff or whatever. Let's talk through a couple pieces of like gym etiquette of just what would be helpful for people to know as they're, I mean, even getting started. Like I would imagine that most gyms, whether you have a company gym, whether you're buying a membership somewhere, whatever, they have orientations that you can do. I would imagine that's a great place to get started as far as what are the do's and don'ts.
Right. Yeah, most places do have it. Especially the bigger gyms, they'll have usually intro sessions too that you can do for free. And that does play into the intimidation role because a lot of people don't want to use a trainer. Or just have a fear of it, just generally speaking. It's not always cheap either. So it can be like, ooh, are people going to see me? Like I walked into Vasa the other day and that area where people work with the trainers is like in the middle of the gym.
Oh, yeah.
And whereas at Lifetime Fitness, the few times I've been there, technically it's in the middle of like the cardio and then all the weight stuff. But it's like, it's so big and there's a wall that's pretty close to it. It kind of doesn't matter as much.
Okay.
So like, that's a much better setup. It's nothing to negate like the Voss I'm referencing, but I mean, it's like right in the middle. So like, and they have trainer on their back and all that stuff. And that was kind of how, when I worked at 24 Hour Fitness, it was somewhat similar, but it was off to the side. And I think that was well thought out. Because I would start there, personally speaking. Like if you really have never stepped into a gym, even if you've had stuff at home and you've worked out for years or something like that, if you go into a gym and you're just simply, okay, I don't know where I want to actually start on the floor. You'll kind of put anxiousness in yourself, and then the gym etiquette thing may come into play because one thing I would immediately mention is you go to the dumbbell area or the quote unquote like warm up / like foam rolling area. Both like those are usually, the second one especially is usually just stuff is everywhere, depending on how they clean things up. And so like a foam roller will be on the wall, and then a Bosu ball's over here, and then all the kettlebells are all over the place, and you got people in their kind of little sections. It's like some of what I'm about to say sounds just extremely common sense. So I'd say like you can start there and just think, okay, I need to give some people space, but it's also, you'll notice a lot of people just use the same stuff for a long period of time. And sometimes that just is what it is. But one of the things I would say on the dumbbell area, for example, would be, even if you have something planned, like what I send to clients, there'll usually be 2 exercises back to back. And I try to think, especially if I know they're going to a big gym, I try to set it up so it's not too off.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, here's a lat pull down and then do this dumbbell movement. It's like, well, that's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
Because you're either going back and forth and then the dumbbells get taken.
Right.
Or the seat gets taken, and all that stuff. So I try to do that. But when you're on your own, you're just doing whatever and you're just choosing exercises.
Because you're saying you can't just take dumbbells and like
don't
schlep
just
them
walk
around with you.
And so
around
it's like
the gym, be like, these are mine.
What I've done in the past, especially when it's like really busy, even if I have those like little supersets is what they're called, I will probably add rest to what normally would have been there. And sometimes you just kind of have to like deal with that being a problem.
Okay.
But also just be aware of, let's say you're using 10s. Those are probably 10s, 12s, 15s are right in the realm of almost everybody.
Yeah.
It can use that for something.
Right.
And so just kind of be aware of that. If you're the guy curling 50s, like I referenced earlier, you're probably good. You can probably sit there for 5 minutes doing all 3 sets and nobody's going to come grab them from you.
Right.
But since most people fall under the other camp, it's just being very aware. Don't just be in your headphones and think that you own the little area. Because there's like probably 100 people or 50 people in the gym right then.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, that's good. Good point with that. Okay, so let's go ahead. Talk to us about realistic expectations, because again, I think that a lot of people, so whether it was first of the year or now they're saying, oh good, it's summer, this is a great time to get in shape, whatever. Now, I don't know, y'all, if you think you're going to do this for like 2 weeks and you're going to be ready to go on your June vacation, you might be a little bit over, that might be a stretch, But talk about expectations. So for example, like if someone is saying, well, I want to get in shape, how much cardio do I do? How much strength do I do? What is the best bang for the buck as far as how to work out? Because, you see all these reels and everything else where people are like, oh my goodness, people that do an hour and a half of cardio, that's like worthless and whatever. You need to do strength training, which sounds, I think there's legitimacy to that. Strength training is great. But how should a person get started?
Are we talking just like ground floor, they never worked out before type thing?
I think either they're really intimidated because they haven't worked out in a long time, or they haven't done anything really targeted for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
So they might know a few things, but they're just like, not in shape.
Right. If you're in the more intimidated category and you haven't joined a gym yet, the way I would start, generally speaking, is think about things that you've either done in the past, whether it's yoga, something in a group fitness class, or even the sport you did. Let's say, it's assuming somebody did something like that, even if it was 15 years ago or something like that. Like try to do, do a YouTube video at home.
Yeah.
Like do it a few times. As odd as that may sound, coming from a personal trainer, they might, it's good. That can get very random.
Yeah.
You can, I wouldn't suggest staying there unless you're following somebody's program, because then you can just be kind of picking things.
Right.
But that comes back to knowing yourself. And if that's what it takes to just kind of get the ball rolling, versus I see so many people join the gym and then the same things keep happening, whether it's every year or every couple of years, and then they don't go. And then that gives you this negative feedback cycle, and then you feel bad. Your self-esteem lowers. And so it's like, try to find the easiest path that has either worked for you, or go with somebody to the gym, go to a group fitness class. You'll know pretty quickly, do I want to be in the group fitness class?
Sure.
Do I want to be on my own with my headphones? And it's like, try to find that versus, oh, I need to do a certain amount of something.
Yeah.
Because if you go that route, then you end up going with the crowd. And if you haven't addressed the fears, or what, maybe you have a health issue, and if you haven't even figured out, I don't want to say figured out, but if you haven't addressed maybe with a doctor or like a chiropractor or something, that there's this other thing that needs to happen while you're doing this, at some point that will bite you. Yeah. And then it can be very discouraging. So I don't know if I'm answering your question well, but
well, it's funny. It reminds me, Jeff, of there were, back in the day, I found fitness classes very encouraging because I didn't have to think. I was being told what to do. So I didn't have to come up with this on my own. I
Yeah.
could. Now, what you don't want to do is, don't sign up for advanced whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
people in there are hardcore and you're going to be that person who feels very like the spotlight is on you or whatever.
Yeah.
I did that once with a spinning class because I'm like, I ride bikes, whatever. And it was, I had to maybe
That's a
knock
good
down to that
reference, yeah.
intermediate a little bit, a little more. But again, yeah, I did that. And they can be fun too. I did a
Right.
hip hop dance one time. I did kickboxing. And it just gives you something to show up for.
Right.
And people who are going to be there who know if you're not there. And so I thought that was a great start.
Yeah, I think that plays into what I'm saying very well. And I think a lot of people will try to, maybe because of the fears they already have, or they just simply literally are just thinking in their head, I don't know. And there's so many options.
Right.
Most places give you like an intro session, and then it's kind of into, ooh, am I going to join like right now?
Yeah.
And so I definitely understand that stuff. I mean, even I've been in that position a few times, just wanting to like go to a Pilates class. Like I'm starting a new Pilates class on Tuesdays, and it's been a while since I've taught one.
Okay.
So I just wanted to start going to
Sure.
some other classes, and unfortunately I'm the only guy in all these scenarios.
There you go.
But so that, I don't know if we'll get there in another part of this topic, but that can play a role.
Yeah.
But the other thing I would say is just getting help, and we kind of naturally touched on that just a second ago, whether it's your friend knows a bunch about fitness, but it's literally seeking somebody else
Sure.
in some way, shape, or form, especially if you just want to go to the gym by yourself.
Yeah.
Get some sort of intro session. Where, I mean, even you can even be honest, go to a trainer and be like, I do not have enough money for this, or I feel uncomfortable for a long period of time. One, might get surprised. And then two, just be very honest and go, I just need to feel comfortable being here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, just about everybody can afford like a couple,
Right.
and if that's what gets you past maybe your weight loss fears or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, that could literally like change your life.
Sure.
And just asking, like, kind of put your pride down.
Yeah.
And just being willing to do that.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, because you are a personal trainer, for someone that says, man, maybe this is something that for a season I would like to try. What can they expect from a personal trainer that they're not going to get from just showing up at a gym, or even doing classes, or even using a trainer at a gym in a group, more instructive or informational way?
Yeah, that's a good question. That would actually piggyback one of the things I said earlier when I used to joke about training, and I envisioned, or me and my friends would, talk about envision just sitting there with somebody doing a chest press example. And it's like, I think a lot of people look at that and think, well, I can just do that. And it's not about the exercise necessarily that you see somebody doing, especially if it's on the machine, or you see somebody doing like core exercises, ab exercises on the ground. It's like, well, I can do that. And it's like, well, yeah, you probably can, but the direction that you can get, and like you can sit down, go over the main 3, 2, 4 things, whatever it is that you want to mainly focus on. One, you don't know how much deeper some of them go. And when you kind of just go off on your own, you may end up just naturally finding the right path. But to be a little blunt, most people don't. I've even had to challenge myself on that with my running. There's times where it's just like, I've been running. I've 30,000 miles on my belt. I don't need help here.
Yeah.
But then why does my left foot keep hurting? And so it's not necessarily the running part of the coaching, but I needed to go to other people so that I could enhance running as well as my daily activities and stuff. And so that would lead me into answering with injury, prevention, generally speaking, getting through anything that's painful, which almost everybody's got low back pain, to like something in their knees, hips, this, that, and the other. We sit down all the time. Yeah. And so the trainer can help focus in on something that you're missing. And when you go to the gym just by yourself, usually, and even if I should say that even if you buy an online program, if it's a generic one, outside of it literally being so specific to the one goal that you aimed at, let's say, it's not still specific unless the coach is individually writing it for you.
Okay.
And so, yes, it may be like enhancing your weight loss, but along the way, you might hit a big hurdle because it's not necessarily helping with the hip flexor pain you have, or like the Achilles stuff that you've dealt with because you used to be an athlete or something like that and you tore it 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of pick and piece things together with somebody, and then you don't have to guess.
Yeah. That's good. I will say, I mean, when I was training with you, two things that I thought were really helpful were one, and you alluded to this in that previous answer, doing more weight or more reps than I probably would have done on my own. Like we always tend to back off a little bit, to be pushed towards you actually probably can do this. And there were several times where I would have said, like, I don't know about this. And you're like, yeah, you could do this.
Yeah,
and then it was like, hey, wait, I can. So that's idea of like, we tend to slack off a little bit more, or think we'll be a little more hesitant to try something. And then two, I think a trainer really provides the, what would I say, like the smorgasbord of different types of things where you might gravitate much more towards, well, I know how to do squats, so I'm just going to do those. Well, coming up really with some creative ways to tackle different muscle groups, I thought was super helpful, like stuff that the average person can't come up with on their own. So
those are two good points. What I heard you say in the first part too is, which I'm surprised I didn't lead with this, with my distance running background, one of the big things is getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to your point, if you kind of stay in the same zone, at some point you plateau.
Yeah.
Which I kind of alluded to that already, but the plateauing part is where things get frustrating.
Right.
And if you don't have somebody looking at even just your program, let alone like, if I see somebody for months on end, sometimes they just walk in the door and you can sense life is just hitting them differently.
Sure.
And then, I've had sessions where I had this whole thing in my head planned and then we talked for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen when you go into the gym, you throw your headphones in. Like,
right.
I love listening to Eminem when I'm working out, but it's not going to necessarily help you figure out why your knee problem keeps coming up, or the financial email you just got right before you walked in or something. And sometimes you just need to be with somebody on the journey.
Yeah.
And that, whether it comes from a team or a family environment, like I referenced earlier, or something like that, where you're in the same class all the time.
Yeah.
You're always on your own. Even for the like big independents out there and stuff, like at some point you're probably going to miss something.
Mm-hmm. All right. So kind of as we finish up here, what would you say for that person who's listening and saying, okay, I feel like I'm getting some motivation here. I feel like this is possible. What like best bang for the buck should a person do? And what if they're saying, well, Jeff, I don't know. I mean, this idea of like, if I only have 20 minutes a day, is that a great place to start? I mean, I feel like if I don't, if I'm not working out 90 minutes a day, what am I even doing? Is it even worth it? So where does incremental effort start paying off? And then how can they what would you say would be the best entry level way of getting going here?
I mean, if we're using kind of the same example as before, I would say starting with a couple of the main basics of things, like even it's easy to overlook walking. Mm-hmm. And whether we're talking about weight loss or just essentially doing what you're asking in the question is just simply getting going.
Yeah.
Here in Colorado for the listeners, I mean, it's sunny a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Even just being out, let's say it's the 20-minute example you just mentioned, that may be all you can do for a while you try to figure stuff out, and just even simply walking gets your brain working and stuff, and it de-stresses. In my opinion, I try to do it more myself. Even if I've ran 7 miles that day, the walk can still be something that enhances something else. From a nutritional standpoint, most people don't drink enough water or eat enough vegetables. And sometimes just doing those things before thinking, oh, what's the solution to this other problem? It may honestly be that stuff. And like you just need to like consistently walk for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
In a more workout example, let's say the 20 minutes is about on average what you have. Aim at somewhere between 2 and 4 days a week. 2 is a very good starting point. And just being kind of very generally realistic with that, and then allowing that to compound over time. Okay. If you keep telling yourself that you're going to show up, the energy shifts. It literally might take 3-6 months. Sometimes for people, it's like 2 years. Yeah. And that can seem, also to circle back to our beginning, that can seem very intimidating. And there's like, I understand, and I have a lot of empathy for those things, and I can help somebody through that and such. But at the same time, there is a blunt side to it where showing up over time is the reality of it.
Sure.
And so if it even has to be, even if you have an hour a day, if you have to just do 15 or 20 minutes, do not worry about anybody else. It doesn't matter that the person on the treadmill is going 90 minutes or 60 minutes or or even the trainer training you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've intimidated somebody in the past. I don't usually get told that, but I work out 7 days a week and I'm almost always in shape. I had a broken foot last July and then I worked out 5 days a week on my, sitting down with weights in my hand and stuff.
Wow.
And I don't mean that braggingly. It's just I've been doing it for so long. I don't even think about it.
Right.
I just go, okay, what do I need to do to keep showing up?
Okay.
Because that's the biggest battle.
Yeah.
No matter what, if you could be 15 or 85.
Yeah.
Just showing up and doing the things is very important.
That's good.
And I'll finish with just saying, it doesn't don't overthink the cardio and strength thing up front.
Yeah.
If you've been doing things for a while, then you need to start piecing. Do I need more of one thing?
Yeah.
And the 2 to 4 day examples eventually get to 2 of each.
Yeah.
Strength training will most likely be more important for most people, but you don't want to just have one or the other forever.
That's good. Great points. And to just do something to just get started is a great way to think about that. So, okay, I want to make sure that people know they can follow you on Instagram at Coach Jeff W. Wilson. Also, your website is jeffwilsonpersonaltraining.com, and you actually can do stuff remotely. You can program an app for people. You can work with people. So if you're interested in Jeff in particular, and maybe getting started on a program with him, we will have all this in the show notes as well, so you can check it out, and you can find out more about him too, and what he has to offer and all the cool stuff there. So that'll be really fun for you. Jeff, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of fun.